9 degrees Fahrenheit outside, 70 degrees Fahrenheit inside. No furnace, no gas line, no electricity. Just walls made from tires that were headed for the landfill and dirt that was already on the ground. That's not a survival story. That's a construction method. And the reason you've never heard of it is worth understanding. His name is Marcus Reed. He is 53 years old. He had been without a permanent home for 14 months. He had $200 in his pocket, a borrowed wheelbarrow, and 97 tires that a tire shop was actively paying to throw away. He found a vacant lot on the edge of a Midwestern city, and over the next several weeks, he built something that a licensed architect would charge $80,000 to recreate. Not because the materials are expensive, because the knowledge was supposed to stay buried. Picture a Tuesday morning in late October, the kind where your breath hangs in the air and your fingers go numb before you have even checked your phone. Marcus has cracked work gloves, a sledgehammer he found behind a tire shop, and a field where nothing has been built in 30 years. The soil is clay-heavy and dark. The sky is the color of old pewter. He bends down, picks up the first tire, a worn-out truck tire, 40 pounds of rubber and steel cord, and he starts packing it with earth, not pouring, packing. He drives the dirt in with the flat face of the sledgehammer, 4 inches at a time, compacting it until that hollow rubber ring becomes a dense mass close to 300 pounds when he is done. He works all morning, then all afternoon, then the next day, and the day after that. By the time most people have filed and forgotten their third complaint to a landlord about a drafty window, Marcus has the first course of his wall laid, and it is already more thermally stable than anything being built in that city this year. Here is the part most people miss, and once you understand it, you will look at every wall you have ever lived inside completely differently. So stay with me, because what comes next is not just the story of one man in a field. It is the mechanism behind your entire heating bill and why it was designed that way. Every material on Earth has a property called thermal mass. It is the ability to absorb heat energy, store it, and release it slowly over time. Dense, heavy materials, stone, water, packed earth, rammed tire walls have enormous thermal mass. Light materials, wood framing, hollow block, thin drywall have almost none. The difference between them is not a matter of degree. It is the difference between a wall that acts as a barrier and a wall that acts as a battery. The simplest version of this, picture 2 containers of water sitting on a stove. One is a shot glass, one is a stock pot. You heat them both to the same temperature, then take them both off the burner. The shot glass is cold in 3 minutes. The stock pot is still warm an hour later. Marcus's walls are the stock pot. The standard American wall, 6 inches of framed lumber stuffed with fiberglass insulation, is the shot glass. And right now, you are almost certainly living inside a shot glass. During the day, even in deep winter, solar radiation and ambient temperature push heat energy into those dense tire walls. The rubber and packed earth absorb it slowly, the way a rock on a beach absorbs heat through a full afternoon, not quickly, but thoroughly, deep into the mass. Then the sun goes down. The outside temperature plunges. Those walls do not lose what they have stored. They begin releasing it, slowly, steadily, inward, into the living space over the next 12 to 16 hours. The interior temperature does not spike, it does not drop, it holds. Builders who have studied this phenomenon call it the thermal flywheel effect. There is no appliance doing this. There is no fuel being consumed. The wall is doing what a wall was always meant to do before the construction industry decided that thin walls plus a furnace was a more profitable arrangement. And I want to be specific about the word profitable, because this is where Marcus Reed's story stops being about one man and starts being about a deliberate decision made by identifiable people at an identifiable moment in history that changed the way every home in this country gets built and heated. That decision is costing you money every single month, and the mechanism is worth understanding precisely. Here is what most residential construction actually looks like. 2x4 lumber framing, 16 inches on center, sheathed in oriented strand board, which is wood chips and glue pressed into sheets, wrapped in house wrap, covered in whatever siding the developer sourced cheapest that week, with fiberglass bat insulation stuffed into the cavities. The entire wall assembly, from interior drywall to exterior surface, is maybe 6 inches thick, and what that wall does thermally is resist heat transfer for a while. It slows it down, but it cannot store heat. It cannot self-regulate. On a night when the temperature drops 30 degrees in 6 hours, that wall gets overwhelmed. The furnace kicks on. The gas meter spins. The utility company records another profitable quarter. You wake up cold at 3 in the morning inside a structure whose most fundamental design feature, the wall, is architecturally incapable of keeping you warm without burning fuel every single hour of every single winter of your life. That is not bad design. That is a business model. The modern industry trained architects, contractors, and building inspectors to think in terms of R value. A metric measuring resistance to heat transfer. Fiberglass bats, spray foam, rigid foam board, all of these score well in R-value calculations. A rammed earth wall does not score high, so in every code table, every energy model, every architecture school curriculum built around those models, the rammed earth wall looks worse on paper. The thin framed wall stuffed with foam looks better. The metric was built around the product. The product was built around the manufacturer. You are living inside the result. Marcus doesn't use the term thermal flywheel. He learned what he knows from a builder in New Mexico and from books he read in the public library during the months he spent between the stacks finding warmth and finding something more useful. He knows the south-facing wall needs to catch winter sun. He knows the walls should form a U shape, open to the south, so the low winter sun angle reaches deep into the interior between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. He positions salvage window glass, $30 from a restore outlet, leftover from someone's bathroom remodel, at roughly 60 degrees from horizontal. That 4-hour daily solar window, stored in the mass of those tire walls, holds the interior at a livable temperature all the way through the night. He spends $11 on hydraulic cement, $22 on salvage 2x4s for the roof frame. The sheet metal roofing costs nothing, found discarded behind a roofing supply company that was going to pay to haul it. The dirt costs nothing. It comes from the hole he digs to partially earth berm the structure, burying the back and side walls in soil for additional insulation and thermal connection to ground temperature. Below the frost line, the earth holds a steady 55 degrees year-round, regardless of what is happening above the surface. The planet itself is a thermal reservoir. Nobody installed it. Nobody owns it. Marcus connects his walls to it. Think about what that means. The hole he digs to build his home is, simultaneously, the insulation his home needs. There is no waste in this system. No material is arbitrary. If that reads like genius, it is. But it is a genius that belonged to everyone, and it was systematically removed from the mainstream building conversation at a very specific moment for very specific reasons. The principles Marcus is using are not experimental. In the early 1970s, a licensed architect named Michael Reynolds spent years developing and documenting exactly this approach. He called it Earthship architecture. He built working homes in New Mexico from discarded tires, aluminum cans, and reclaimed glass. His structures were warm in winter, cool in summer, fully off-grid, and buildable by people with no construction background for a fraction of conventional cost. He published his findings. He trained other builders. He had documented, occupied, functioning buildings. In 1990, the New Mexico State Board of Licensure for Architects censured him and suspended his license. Let that sit for a moment. A licensed architect with documented functioning buildings had his license suspended for building homes that didn't require utility hookups. The official charges cited deviations from standard building codes, but the timing is precise. Reynolds' conflict with the licensing board intensified at exactly the moment when manufactured and prefabricated housing was consolidating into a major industry. At exactly the moment when energy companies were modeling decades of residential heating and cooling demand. And at exactly the moment when large-scale fiberglass and spray foam manufacturers were expanding production. The free building method had to become marginal, and mostly it did. Reynolds eventually had his license reinstated and kept building. He founded the Greater World Earthship Community in Taos, New Mexico, a subdivision of fully permitted off-grid homes that you can visit today. Not a commune, not an experiment. A permitted, platted, legally recorded residential subdivision where people have lived year-round for decades, in homes that have never been connected to a gas line, that have never received a utility bill for heating or cooling, and that continue to perform within a few degrees of their original design targets. The oldest structures there are over 40 years old. They have not been renovated. They have not been upgraded. They are working exactly as Reynolds said they would work in the same desert climate with the same tire walls, on the same passive solar geometry he drew up in a notebook in 1972. That community has also been the subject of a documentary, Garbage Warrior, released in 2007, which followed Reynolds as he fought the New Mexico legislature for the right to build a test community outside the standard code framework. He won that fight. A bill was passed granting him an experimental community designation in Taos County. That bill is the reason the Greater World Community exists in its current permitted form. The fight to get that bill passed took 11 years. 11 years to legally protect a building method that had already been producing warm, dry, structurally sound homes since before most of the legislators were in office. That timeline is the story. Not that Reynolds was silenced forever, he was not. But the default response of the regulatory system to a working, affordable, material-free construction method was 11 years of obstruction. And in those 11 years, millions of homes were framed with lumber, stuffed with fiberglass, and connected to gas meters, 1 quarter at a time. Here is the honest thing you should be sitting with right now, if this works. And it works. The physics are not in dispute. The buildings are still standing. Why is there not a rammed tire wall in any standard building code in this country? Why is this absent from architecture school curricula? Why did you have to stumble onto a video to find out about Michael Reynolds? The answer to every one of those questions is the same answer that explains your utility bill. Hold that. Now let's talk about what you can actually do with this. 3 levels, depending on where you are. The first costs almost nothing. Thermal mass can be added to any space you already live in. Dense stone tile on a floor that receives afternoon sun. Brick or stone surfaces on interior walls near south-facing windows. Large water containers like dark painted barrels, stacked glass bottles sealed with caps, or simple tanks can be placed where they receive direct daylight. Water carries one of the highest thermal mass ratings of any common material. 100 gallons in a sunny room is a meaningful reservoir. It absorbs heat during the day and releases it at night. It will not transform your heating bill overnight, but it is physically, measurably real. The same principle Marcus used applied to wherever you already live. If you rent and cannot change your floors or walls, even this smaller version matters. South-facing windowsills loaded with dense ceramic pots, a bookshelf of packed hardcover books against an exterior wall, or a stone countertop instead of laminate near a window. Each of these participates in the same thermal flywheel at a smaller scale. You are not solving the problem, but you are reducing it with materials you already have at zero cost. That is not nothing. The second level is a structure. If you have outdoor space, a property, a plot, even a shared rural lot, Earthship-inspired construction is available to you right now. Most jurisdictions do not require a building permit for non-dwelling structures under a certain square footage. Check your county code first. Source tires from local shops. In most states, shops pay per tire disposal fees, which means they will hand them to you for free if you bring a way to load them. Ram each tire with a sledgehammer and dampen clay heavy soil in 4-inch layers, roughly 2 hours per tire. Stack in staggered courses like brickwork. Orient your longest glazed wall to true south. Angle your glazing at 60 degrees from horizontal for winter capture. And earth berm your rear and side walls wherever the terrain permits. Seal with hydraulic cement. Source glass and roofing from salvage. Your wall material costs nothing. Your labor is the only expense, and the labor requires no specialized skill, only consistency. The biggest mistake first-time builders make at this stage is underestimating how physical the tire ramming work actually is and trying to rush it. 2 hours per tire is not an estimate. It is the actual minimum for proper compaction. Under-rammed tires settle unevenly, which creates wall instability over time. Take the time on each one. The wall's thermal performance depends directly on the density you achieve. Loose packed tires are shot glasses. Properly rammed tires are stock pots. The sledgehammer work is the whole game. If you want to build something that requires a permit, the regulatory landscape has shifted since Reynolds' censure. New Mexico, Colorado, and parts of Europe now have pathways for Earthship-style permitting. Some counties in Arizona and Vermont have approved rammed tire structures as primary dwellings in the last decade. It still involves friction. You will likely need an engineer to stamp drawings and a conversation with your local building department before you break ground. But the door is open in ways it was not 40 years ago. Reynolds' 11-year fight made that possible. The least useful thing you can do with that opening is not walk through it. The third level is just knowledge. Even if you never build anything, understanding thermal mass changes how you evaluate every space you'll ever rent or buy. Touch the walls, push on them lightly. If they flex, if they feel hollow, if you can hear street noise with no apparent source, those walls have no meaningful thermal mass and will cost you in every season you live there. A wall that is cool to the touch in summer, warm in winter, quiet and solid when you knock on it, that wall is doing real thermal work. That quality will not appear in a listing description or a home inspection report, but it is the most reliable indicator of whether you will be comfortable in that space without a mechanical system running around the clock. That knowledge costs nothing. Use it every time. On the first night Marcus spent inside his finished structure, the outside temperature was 11 degrees Fahrenheit. He had no sleeping bag rated for that temperature, no space heater, just tires, packed dirt, reclaimed glass, and the thermal physics of the walls working silently in every direction. He was warm. He had spent $163 total. The rest of his $200 budget was still in his pocket. Hold that number next to the average American household's annual heating expenditure, which currently sits above $1,100 a year, every year, with no endpoint in sight. For a mechanical system that does not solve the problem of cold, it only manages it on a subscription basis for as long as you can keep paying. Marcus did not pay for management. He paid for a solution. The knowledge he used was never lost. It was buried deliberately and at a profit to industries that needed you to keep buying what they were selling. What he built in that field is not a curiosity. It is a proof of concept that has been standing since the 1970s in Taos, in fields and backyards and self-built communities across 30 countries, in every structure that decided the thermal physics mattered more than the building code. Next week, we are covering a water system so simple it was used on every inhabited continent for 4,000 years and is now technically illegal in portions of 12 American states. Subscribe before that goes up. And if you know someone currently overpaying for heat, which is nearly everyone you know, send them here, not as an answer, as a beginning. The list of things that were traded away for someone else's bottom line is longer than you think, and you deserve to know all of it.